Hello, everyone, once again. Welcome to the track 2. My name is Katerina, and I'm going to spend this next 8.5 hours together with the greatest lineup of speakers. I'm sure you're going to listen to very valuable information, get insights, get inspiration, and answers to your questions here from our brilliant speakers. By the way, don't forget you can send the questions in a chat. And with no further ado, let me introduce the very first speaker in this track, Brian Benz, Java champion.
Ah,
Uh,
hello.
Hello, Brian.
How
Hello.
are you?
Good. Thank you. What about you?
Oh, I'm fine. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. We're glad to have you. Brian is a principal cloud advocate at Microsoft, helping developers get the most of Azure. Before joining Microsoft, he was solution architect, consultant, developer, author, and presenter at IBM, Deloitte, and other companies. And today's Brian talk is on using AI to build an AI Java application. Again, please do not hesitate to put your questions to the chat so we could cover them at the end of the talk. And Brian, I'm happy to pass the virtual mic over to you.
Thank you. Hi. Thanks, Katerina. It's great to be here. A wonderful cause to be supporting. And greetings from Las Vegas. It's 1 in the morning here and ready to go. I was actually just at Cloud World earlier today, just wrapping up down there here in Las Vegas. So this is always fun being part of the virtual world. All right. So my talk's on using AI to build an AI Java app. And what I'm going to cover today is several things. I'm going to cover some new features of Copilot. So GitHub Copilot actually just announced today that the beta for Copilot and all the features I'm going to show you today are available to everyone. So if you've installed the GitHub Copilot extension and Copilot chat extensions, make sure and refresh those. Restart your Visual Studio Code and or IntelliJ IDEA and other IDEs to get the latest features. And I'm going to show some of those to you today. So I literally today I finished Cloud World. I came back, and because of the announcement, I've updated my presentation. So you're getting the latest information about a couple of things: Copilot and Copilot Chat. I'm going to go into Copilot and Copilot Chat in depth, and then I'm actually going to cover some details of uh, AI at Microsoft, some other offerings we have that'll help enhance your applications. With Java, with a lot of Java applications, you don't really want to touch the central code in a lot of cases, especially if there's a lot of legacy apps and things like that. But you can add AI around it and other things to help enhance your application. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and some of the things that just came up in the discussion before mine, like security, inclusiveness, and privacy as well. So I'll talk a little bit about those. So let's dive in. So GitHub Copilot is what I'm really going to show today. And it basically offers contextualized suggestions for your code. It started out with sort of a really advanced form of type ahead, where it would actually make suggestions and add documentation and things like that. And then we came in with Copilot Chat. Copilot Chat uses GPT in the background, and you can actually apply your own data as well. But what it does is it actually adds another layer of context into your application as well. So you can use Copilot and Copilot Chat in VS Code, Codespaces, Visual Studio, JetBrains IDEs, including IntelliJ IDEA and NeoVim. And there's ways to install all of those. Visual Studio Code is the easiest. It's just some extensions that you grab from the marketplace. And the way it works is there's an OpenAI codex with a massive amount of code built in and trained. When you create these kinds of things, the large language models, you have a bunch of parameters, and there's literally trillions of parameters in the large language models that we're using for GitHub Copilot and Copilot Chat. And what happens is there's a context that gets sent to Copilot, It refers back to the OpenAI Codex. It makes some suggestions and gives you responses based on that. So, Copilot Chat. What's so fancy about this that wasn't in the original version of Copilot? Copilot Chat has awareness. So, when you're in Visual Studio Code, as in shown in this picture here, you have file names, open files, and wherever the cursor is, and if you've got something selected, it actually knows where you are. So, let's actually show this live. Now, I got to add a caveat here. Whenever I do stuff with AI live, you can AI tends to be just a little bit capricious, especially these days. And so you might get a different version of the answer depending on what time of day it is and what the moon cycle is, and who knows why. But you get all kinds of different responses. So I'm going to show a lot of live code here, but I'm also going to refer back to those pictures I showed you, which is when it's working at its optimum. So as I mentioned before, so Copilot Chat, I've already installed the extension. So if I go here to Copilot, you can see I've got Copilot installed and I've got Copilot Chat installed. There's also something called Copilot Labs, which is the more advanced features. And there's this new one, Copilot Voice, which is kind of cool as well. So you can literally just talk to your computer. And it will translate that and perform tasks based on what you do. Now, things it can't do, getting back to my Copilot, and let's bring up the chat here. So here's the chat. And I mentioned the announcement today. So there's several features here. These slash features, for any of you who have been around for a while, this will be a bit nostalgic. I remember, 100 years ago, using Lotus 123 and Excel and Clipper and DBase, and they all had a slash menu in them. The slash menu pulled up all of the commands you needed. It looks kind of familiar here. It's a slash menu that starts and builds things. So any of you old timers out there, you'll probably recognize this and go, hey, wait a minute. This is something I'm familiar with, but of course, completely new and way more advanced than anything we had in the olden days. Anyway, enough of my reminiscing. So we have several tasks you can use now inside of Copilot Chat, but the sorts of things you can do here is I can go into my code. Let's just close this. I can go into my code. So Visual Studio Code and Copilot Chat is aware where my cursor is, if I've selected something, or what exactly is open right now, and also any code that's on the file explorer over here as well. So it's kind of cool. It knows contextually where we're at. So I can go here and I can just say explain, and it will actually tell me what this code does. The code snippet you called is a constructor for a class called Hello World Features. Da 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 da. Folks are probably familiar with it. It goes into a pretty likely description of what actually happens here, and it's giving me some ideas for advanced changes that I could do and an improvement. And it basically says here that there's not much that can be done with this. And when I want to fix things, I can do clear. I'm going to show you some other stuff that's new in Copilot, but I just wanted to show that as well. All right. So that's context awareness. That's what it means. So next up, we have inline completions. This is another new feature. This is very cool as well. You hit Control, Command, and Enter to get a list of suggestions for your code, or you can also use the keys here. These are very little known. The brackets to actually navigate through possible suggestions. You might not like the first suggestion that actually gets done. And in this case, I don't think there are any suggestions, but let's just go in and have a look at that. There we are. So I can just hit Control and Enter, and it's going to open up over here. I've got a Zoom thing in the way. Okay. So it's giving me 7 of 10 solutions for something if I want to do something. See, this is the thing about AI. So this is not necessarily going to replace any developers anytime soon. So it says up here, synthesizing 7 of 10 solutions. Obviously, this is a completely different set of step in this particular application. You wouldn't know that unless you have experience with coding. So it's not like somebody who's never worked with Java is going to be able to just come in here and say, write me some code that works just fine. If I actually accept this solution, it's going to ruin my code. There's also down here, suggestion 2, get mapping. Okay, so that's the next piece of the code down here. That's fine, but that's already there. A lot of times it might make suggestions that are, it's trying to help. It means well, but they're not necessarily useful suggestions. It's giving you more code that you could add if I didn't already have the code here. So it's not 100% context aware in that sense yet. It wasn't smart enough to go through all my code and say, oh, this is already written. I don't need to suggest this as a solution. It's just basically giving me suggestions of things that are related to this code that I could use to actually call the code. But these are all actually things I've already implemented, but it doesn't know that. All right, so awareness, very limited. In this case, it's limited to the file that's open and whatever I selected, and then it gives me some suggestions. All right. Let me move this Zoom thing. I'll move it to a different window. That's even better. You folks can't see it, but I had like a little Zoom box in the middle of my screen. All right, so you can also use Control Command and the arrow to accept word by word suggestions too. And if you want to accept something, you just hit Tab, or there was a little accept solution link there as well. And if you click that, it's actually going to replace that code with this solution, which you don't want it to do. All right, one of the other cool features that was announced is inline chat, and this is really cool. So Control and I, well, they're all cool, but this one is especially cool. Let's put it that way. Control I actually opens a little context window in the screen, and Command Shift I gets a quick chat window open, and Command 0 moves focus to the sidebar where you're working with chat, and then Command and 1 moves focus to the editor as well. So let's look at those. So here we are. I'll close this now. So instead of having it pop up in a separate window, I just hit Control I, and it asks me here, right here in this context window, what else do I want to do with this? And all those commands that I had before are here. Actually, only 4 of them. So doc, explain, fix, and test. So let's do the explanation again. Oh, it comes over here, and it does that. All right. So basically, it's going to deliver the same suggestion I had before. And I think I don't know if I mentioned this, but clears up your window in case it's getting messy, which is nice. So what can you do with this? Fix is awesome. So let's go into the code itself, and let's do something I always do when I'm talking about manager. I write manger. No one else has done that, have they? And I'll select it, and I'll do the command I and fix. And let's see if we can actually figure out what's wrong and fix it. Running a second iteration of fix. So it's actually round tripping to the GPT right now. Okay, so basically it's telling me that, yeah, see, this is wrong. Public, it's for some reason, oh yeah, no, it is. I'm sorry, it's right. This is the wrong code in red, and the green is the correct code. So it actually fix this for me if I want it to. So I can say accept, and it fixes it. So, oh, okay, I wanted to feature manager, not manger. When it gets late at night and you've got that, you spent hours on this problem and it's because you've got an I instead of an L or something like that. Well, there it is. So it'll actually figure all that stuff out and fix it for you. So that's kind of nice. That's fix. So it'll actually tell you, you can view, also earlier today when I did this, it gave me a little explanation, which it didn't give me just now. So, like I said, it's a little bit capricious. In this case, it gave me a little box where it showed me the old code and the new code and what it's going to replace. But earlier today, it gave me this nice little explanation here where it says, sure, I can help you with that. However, I don't see a reference to feature mangler. I wrote feature mangler instead of manager, and it changed it. So, can you please provide more context? But it actually fixed it as well. So, as I mentioned, it's a little confusing, but it is useful. It just you might not always get the same result, which is great if you're coding. That's fine, but when you're doing demos, it's nice to have consistency. All right, doc. Then you can also do doc. So let's go back to the code. I can highlight this, and remember we had explained before. We can also do doc. And what it'll do is it'll actually just add a little doc up here, constructor for the Hello World features class, feature manager instance to be used for feature flagging. So it knows enough about this application. By the way, yeah, this application is a Spring Boot application that uses feature flags to turn on and off sections of an app to build it out. So that's kind of cool. All right, so I can accept this. I can just say, sure, let's add that. Okay, so now we've added a little description. So that's kind of nice, quick. For those of you who don't like to do documentation, I know a lot of you do. We all love it. But if you ever get a chance to do this, it's just really nice. You can select this whole thing and say doc, and it'll actually add context and features and things. So when you actually share the code, someone else could understand how it works. All right. So the other thing, and this is pretty cool, although I'd say this is the least, based on my 3 hours of experience working with it, this is the least useful part of the commands, specifically for Java. You can just type here, if I just select this again, y/tests. Takes a second. It actually generates some code for a test. And the test itself, in some cases, actually tests things you'd be interested in testing. Other things, it just adds a class with the same class name with the word test added to it, and then checks for that. This one is actually useful. So you could actually now, that's one thing that, at least at this point, the Copilot will not write this to your code base for you. You still have to write it to the code base. You can ask it where you should place it, and it'll tell you, but you can't actually, you have to copy and paste this and put it in the right place for when you run the test. And then you have to refer to the test as well. But it's kind of cool. It is useful. It generated that whole test, which is nice and quick. I know there are other tools for generating tests, but this is quick and easy and usually has some context to it. Like I say, though, it doesn't always test anything. Sometimes it just says test passed and returns that when you go through. So, just basically checks to see if it compiles, I guess. But there's a compiler for that. So, all right. And if you want to discard that, just scroll down. And you could say discard. There's also these features here that are not enabled for some reason. Discard to clipboard or a new file, which is kind of cool too. So discard. You don't always, obviously you don't want that test inline in your code. You want it in a separate file, separate class. All right. So that's fix, doc, and tests. Also, one of the interesting things here, Codespaces. So some of you may be familiar with Codespaces, but I'll give you a little sample of that too. What I'm using here for my examples is Visual Studio Code. You can download it you can just search Visual Studio Code, download it, and it's free, and all the extensions are free. But if you ever want to work on your code and you don't necessarily have a computer available, or you want to share configurations and code amongst several people in an online environment, we have Codespaces for that. So let's go to the browser quick. Let's go to the browser quick. Nope, not Zoom. All right. Let's go to my, this is the code here. So those of you who've worked with GitHub, I'm assuming most of you have, you're familiar with this this particular feature where you clone locally your code. And this is the way you have to do things when you're working with Visual Studio Code. You create a local clone, and then you open it up in Visual Studio Code, you start working with it. Well, we also have this thing called Codespaces. I can create a code space. And what this does, it does several things. It takes my code, it creates a container to run the code on based on a pre-configured container environment, and it runs it on a virtual machine at GitHub called a hosted runner. It clones my code in that repo into the hosted runner. So you still have to push it back to the repo, but it creates a brand new environment for you. We've got a bash. Dun, 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 it's still building. Let's install the Java pack. Sure. So we've got a bash environment down here. It's installing an extension for the Java pack right now. And here's all our code. So we've got the same code here. Main, Java. And this is the code we were looking at. So same code, pretty much the same thing, but we're in a browser now. This is my browser, and this is a clone of that code that's running in a repository in this thing called the hosted runner. So kind of cool. Now, you can pre-configure images. I just wanted to show you how you install this. And this is how you would install Copilot. And I'm going to do the release version of Copilot and Copilot Chat. So it automatically installed both of those for me when I installed Copilot. Just for fun, I'll do Copilot Labs too. I don't know if any of the dependencies that I'm demoing today need Copilot Lab. I don't think they do, but I'm just being safe. All right, so I've got all that. That's all you have to do to install this. So now I have these extensions installed. And now I can actually just go to my chat, and I can do the same thing with my code, which is kind of nice. Where's my code? I opened it. You saw me open it. Hello World features. There we go. So I can go back and grab the same exact code that I was using on my local machine. And I can do Control I, and it opens up in a browser as well. And I can still have access to all the same commands. I hope. Fix. Let's see. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I didn't break this one before I asked it to be fixed, but I can say explain. Yeah, there you go. So it's going to explain the code again. So as you can see, it only took about 3 or 4 minutes. I created a new environment. This could be a completely new laptop or shared machine, or in an academic or government environment. They have very limited machines that they can run things on. You run this in the browser, and the browser has all the capabilities, has the latest Copilot stuff. So that's pretty cool, I think. So that's something you can do with Codespaces as well. And down here, you've got full bash. So you can do, you've got actual access to everything you've got in your file extension, and you can run it from here. You can save this. So you can actually save this environment and create and share it later as well. So this can be saved, and the next time I go in and open this, it's going to have all the context and all the additions I had. And you still have to push out to your main repo, but it's there. So I did want to mention that. Okay. Okay, so we do have full Codespaces support there. That's pretty cool. All right, so aside from Copilot, what else do we have that we can offer? We have Azure AI services. We have a bot service. The bot service itself is a way of orchestrating and creating um, items that can react to certain events and retrieve data. We also have cognitive search. So GPT based models, large language models, are language based. But what if you want to work with images? You want to have, you want to read text that's in images. Or you want to be able to archive and share pictures and describe what's in those pictures and index them based on the descriptions. You can do that with cognitive search as well. And inside of cognitive search, too, we have down at the bottom here vision, so those pictures and images I was talking about, speech, so you can translate multiple different languages. And by the way, I was using Bing Translate recently. That's an awesome tool. It's a iPhone app and Android, but it has this cool feature where you can have two or more languages, and you can just leave the phone on the table, and if people are discussing, it will actually automatically detect and translate all the languages at the same time. So it can be quite busy on the screen, but depending on who speaks which language, they can actually understand each other. And when they respond, other people can look at the phone and see what that person said as well. And it was pretty natural and pretty useful. So, and that's all based on cognitive search capabilities that we have for speech. Uh, Language. So once again, speech and language is what that's used for. There's decision making, and that's nice when you mix it with the bot service. We also have some pretty cool stuff for video indexing. So it'll go through and track your video and keep track of different segments of the video. It'll break it down by scenes. It'll create different chapters, different videos as well.
I'll ask
Yeah, go
Sergey
ahead and
to
ask
give us.
questions if you
Uh,
like. Hmm?
I just want to say that we want to ask Sergey to wait like a couple more minutes,
Yeah,
if he's
yeah, we
okay
can be
with that.
brief. I know everyone. Yeah, Sergey. Yeah, I teed you up nicely, and I apologize for. Let's make the questions real quick so we don't take up too much of Sergey's time because I
Okay.
know everyone prepares their talks.
Okay.
And,
So
mm.
the first question was like, what would be the next AI trend?
Yeah, so the next AI trend, I think, was it's really going to be about what do you use the existing models for. It's not going to be like something new. Large language models is a pretty big thing, and I think that's going to be there to stay, really. And I think that the next one really is just human imagination and human creativity mixed with the AI tools that we already have. I've heard about things like people are being able to find new genetic sequences that explain how diseases work that they just weren't able to do before. That just detects patterns so much better in a large sample of data. That if you look at X-rays, for example, an X-ray technician maybe there's no X-ray technician out there who's going to see a billion images in their lifetime and be able to analyze them all and remember them all and understand every single one of them and compare them with each other. A large language model can do that. Now, that's a good thing and a bad thing because it's going to be able to detect things in those images and those X-rays and things like that at a far better rate than a human would. But at the same time, there might come a time when there's no more humans who can understand those images or X-rays, and then we lose that skill. And what if the AI just decides one day that, or something goes wrong with the AI? It could be anything. And what do we do then? Then we're reliant on these tools and technologies, and we don't have the knowledge ourselves. So, I think that's the main thing: is just being able to figure out a way to use these tools and technologies in a way that benefits mankind, but necessarily sets us back if we don't have the tools and technologies. So maybe the AI and tech will be able to teach us things. Maybe that's another way. So I'm just thinking of things off my head. But the bigger theme is really that human imagination and creativity combined with AI and figuring out what can be done with that to sort of make the world better. I think it's going to be a big deal. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, thank you. And the second one was about Copilot. If it can find a logical error in some piece of code like a loop.
Yes. Well, yeah, absolutely. So we talked about it a little bit, and I think that's where things went south in the recording. So yeah, basically, as long as the code is not spread across multiple files, it's okay for now. Now, at the current state of Copilot and other tools like this, their context is good, but the context is very limited. So, if you have to figure out amongst 5 different files where the problem might be in a loop, you could probably do that. But if it's 500 files in a very complex system, and it might be dependent on external forces as well, like data that keeps the loop perpetuating. For example, if it's a loop that's based on incoming data, and the incoming data, there's something wrong with that. That's the kind of thing that the large language model and Copilot just doesn't detect at this time. Maybe it'll get better over time, but yeah, that's the kind of thing you have a challenge with. So yes and no. If it's a fairly simple loop that you're working with, is if it's a single file, yes, no brainer. But if it's 5 files, 10 files, yeah, that's okay too. But then if it's 500, it's a challenge. So just like it would be for humans. Yeah.
Okay, great. Actually, no more questions. And
Okay.
Brian, I have an idea probably just to suggest for you and for our participants. What if we arrange a separate webinar to fully cover the topic, to be able to make it with a good connection, and so that our participants would listen to the part that they missed?
Yeah, sure,
Sounds like.
absolutely, absolutely. If we need to make a recording of it, or yeah, a second webinar, that'd be great. In fact, my colleague Mark Heckler is going to be speaking in an hour or two. He's going to be elaborating on these topics here, so he might cover enough that your viewers are happy. Uh, is some of the things they might have missed in my session because of the latency issues. But otherwise, yeah, I'm happy to re-record and uh, have a separate event.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
absolutely.
much. And sorry once again for this.
Yeah,
And thank you for joining. Thank you for your support. And it was really great to have you. And probably we'll have a separate webinar to cover the topic in full. Thank you.
awesome. Thanks, and thanks to everyone who paid to watch this for their support as well. So thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.
All right. Thanks.